Hi there, Greg Gonovitz here. You might recall me from the last episode of Rock Talk, which was also the first episode of Rock Talk. Welcome back. First of all, I just want to acknowledge Reese Burnell, who's our technical producer, is doing a fantastic job of doing all these little effects and stuff, and he built that robot that we used last week to shamelessly hucksterize my products on shopgregonovitz.com, which I just did again. So welcome back. I was looking at all your comments that you guys gave us, some very constructive criticism. Most of it was from friends who, of course, wouldn't tell me the truth anyway. So I thank you for that. And duly noted, people that you want to see on the show. Well, next week we're going to have Lawrence Gowan. And then I believe we're going to have Steve Lukather from Toto, who's had an incredible career as a recording artist. And then Ed Pilling's name came up from Flood. Paul Dean from Loverboy came up. All of these guys will eventually be on the show. So that's Saturdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The one letter that did stick out in particular for me last week, I'm going to show it to you right now. This arrived right after the broadcast, and it went something like this. So without further ado, here he is, Don't Quit Your Day Job, the living legend, the greatest rock and roll engineer-producer in history, my friend, Eddie Kramer.
Previously on Rock Talk.
And all of a sudden, I'm hearing in the background this weird, off time, out of tune, horrible chords of the piano. And it's going clang, 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 clang. And it's just horrendous. And I can just about see into the studio. It looks a little dark out there. Oh, it's Brian, freaking Brian Jones from the Stones. He had stumbled into, because, Brian was a good friend of Jimmy's. He'd stumbled into the studio. And Jimmy is looking at me, like, get him out of here, So I walk into the studio. Brian, come here, man. Yeah, what's happening? Oh, he's obviously completely out of his brain. Come on, Brian, come in the studio, come in the control room. So he came into the control room and he collapsed down in front of the console, out. He was gone. And then we proceeded to cut the track, and that was it.
Did you ever keep that track with him on it just as a sort of a blooper?
It's on one of the tapes. Where it is, I'd have to kill several thousand people to do that.
Okay, so let's talk for a moment about Brian, because I know, as a guy, he was flawed. He was a misogynist. He did a lot of things, really, and the drugs and the alcohol and all the problems that he caused for himself and the Stones. But your thoughts on him as a contributor to any of the music outside of All Along the Watchtower, when you were working with the Stones, how was he to work with that band?
I love Brian. I thought he was unbelievably creative. He was the original. He was the originator of the Stones, and a genius, certainly flawed, but there was something about him. I thought he was on another planet, but a good planet.
But he could pick up anything.
And he was a multi-instrumentalist.
Right,
he could play anything.
Yeah.
He would play some kind of a Middle Eastern oboe, Shania kind of thing. He could there was nothing that guy picked up that he couldn't play. Sax, didn't matter.
Yeah, marimbas, anything.
Anything. He was great. And a very good friend of Jimmy's. And in fact, when Jimmy went to Monterey,
right,
Brian announced, he went on stage and said, my good friend Jimi Hendrix, blah, 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 welcome him. And
I just watched Monterey the other night, and it was great. And unfortunately, they cut out the introduction from the movie, but you can see him walking through the crowd with this like sort of regal robe on, and the blonde prince, incredible.
He was a flawed human being. We all, in some way or another, hit him. Probably because of the drugs and whatever, and his paranoia, and the Stones treated him like shit. It's all in the books, But
yeah,
Jimmy liked him. I liked him. A lot of people liked him.
Yeah, because I know that he also went into a Beatles session at one point, and he played sax on that song "You Know My Name, Look Up the Number," and he played sort of a cocktail lounge, Ronnie Scott's kind of saxophone solo on it. So he really was something else. I want to throw some names at you. First of all, let's talk about Woodstock. I mean, a lot of people might not know, but that you were in the recording truck at Woodstock recording all of the incredible artists that played there. That must have been a nightmare of logistics, trying to keep everything together with the rain and, having to mic everything up. Like, how long in between acts would you say? Because we don't know that. We just saw the edited version.
I have only one thing to say. 3 days of drugs and hell.
For you too?
No.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Woodstock was a challenge. There's no question about it. I got offered the gig by, I think Michael Wadley called me up, the filmmaker, and said, you do Jimi Hendrix and you do a lot of good live stuff and blah, blah, blah. And said, would you consider coming up to this festival, Woodstock? It's a couple of weeks from now. We're expecting maybe 150,000 people. Hendrix is going to be the headliner. And, you do good work. Do you want to come do it? And I said, yeah, sure. That'd be fun. So on the Friday morning of Woodstock, I get a lift from a young lady driving a VW, and her name is Thelma Schumacher. Now, Thelma Schumacher, you may look her up. She is an Academy Award-winning editor, works with a gentleman by the name of Martin Scorsese, who was also going up to Woodstock as an assistant cameraman. And by the way, she still edits all of his movies and has done since the beginning. But she drove me up to Woodstock. And we parked the car because we were about a mile from the actual site because you couldn't go any further. The traffic was blocked. That was it. Pulled over to the side of the road. We walked the last mile. And this is now 6:30 in the morning. So I came over the hill with my machine gun. Yeah. All right.
I'll show you piece of love.
So I got up to the top of this hill. It was like a grass verge. I'm looking down what appears to be kind of an amphitheater. It's perfect. It's a natural amphitheater. It slopes right down to where the stage is. And the sun's coming up over the stage. And I'm getting a little closer and I'm looking and I'm thinking, oh my God, we're going to be recording on this stage in 5 hours? It's chaos. There are 2 cranes. There's beams being moved across in the air. There's 25 guys running around, carpenters and electricians and sound guys. It was organized chaos. It was crazy. I thought, all right, well, let me go find my sound truck. So I walk to the stage, go behind the stage about another couple of 100 yards. I'm in the back end of a tractor trailer truck in a space 8 foot by maybe 6 or 7 feet. There's 2 tape machines in there, 2 8-track tape machines. One of them from the Fillmore East. Now, here's where we get lucky. Thank goodness that we had the entire tech crew from the Fillmore East, because those guys had their shit together. They really were incredible. And Bill Graham, who owned the Fillmore East and the Fillmore West, made sure that he got his crew up there. And Bill Hanley, who was the front of house guy, had built special speakers for Woodstock on the, you see the kids climbing the towers? Those speakers he designed and had made specifically for Woodstock. And I'm standing around looking at the audience, and it's growing. There's 500,000 people. I'm staring out at them. And next to me is Bill Graham. And he turns to me and he says, "Hey, Kramer, if these people decide to riot, we're fucked." I said, "Geez, thanks, Bill. That's really nice of you. I think I'm going to go back to my truck. Bye."
That's amazing. But so in between acts, 5 hours, an hour? Like, what was the
No, 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 no,
turnaround?
no. It was pretty. It was pretty good. I will tell you one silly story about in between acts. The first band that comes up, the crew had built this circular stage with wheels,
Right.
and it's divided in half. The band that's playing is playing the front half, and the idea is the second band set up behind them,
Turn it around.
and then the idea is to turn like a turntable, and then the next band's on.
Yeah.
They turned it for the first band, all the wheels fell off, and it sat there for the whole time. It never moved after that.
So now they had to strip the gear and set up the next band's equipment every time.
What are you going to do? It's Woodstock.
Unbelievable. Okay, so we're talking about live albums now. Well, actually, first of all, did you know that Jimmy was going to do what he did when he did the Star Spangled Banner? Did you get any idea, or did you just hear it like everybody?
I'd heard him do it before, so it was a natural. I mean, I was not surprised.
Yeah.
What surprised me was how amazing it was. I mean, it was searing. It took your head off. I mean, it was scary. It was emotional. It hit every nerve. It was phenomenal.
You know, the only sad part for me of that scene in the movie is that when he was scheduled to play, and of course the schedule was way off skew anyway, it looked by the time he went out, there was like maybe a paltry 50 or 60,000 people left.
That's right.
Can you imagine what would have happened if he had played at a peak at like 10 o'clock at night in front of 500,000? What that would have been like?
It would have been different.
Because he looked resigned to the fact a little bit like that. So,
I've looked at that footage very closely, and I also know, by hearing stuff, and he was pretty happy being there, I think. And the fact that he was trying something new. I mean, hey, let's just try a whole new band for Woodstock. Let's just try a whole bunch of new songs nobody's ever heard before. It was great. I mean, he does say, we're nothing but a band of gypsies.
Right.
Which gives us the clue for what's going to happen 3 months later at the Fillmore East, which is the band of gypsies. But Jimmy was incredibly kind to his friends. He was very generous. And you'd like to bring him in, like Billy Cox. He definitely wanted to have Billy Cox in the band. And Mitch, of course. And this was going to form the new experience. The percussion and all the rest of that was okay, but
And of course, you worked on this project last year, which is the all the tracks done over 2 nights. It looks like by the 5 CDs in here of the Band of Gypsies at the Fillmore East.
Yeah, that's all 4 shows.
Yeah.
Right.
So he did 2 a night, I suppose, right?
Yeah, the first show would be like 7 o'clock, and the next show would be maybe 9 or 10, something like that.
Right. And then of course, there's way more tracks than what we heard on the original album. But I mean, what they're doing with the Hendrix people, incredible packaging again of all of the stuff that you guys did. The other live albums that I've got that people want to know about is here's one. Exactly how much? This is from Andrew Walchuk. A lot of Irish guys weighing in today. Exactly how much of Kiss Alive was actually live? I've heard that aside from Peter Criss's drums, everything else was recorded in the studio.
Well, let's just see. Let's just talk about that, shall we, Gregory?
Yes, why not?
Mr. Godovich, I got an answer for you, and it's not funny. Part of that is true. We recorded in 3 different locations. We get the tapes back to Electric Lady, and we're listening to them, and I'm going, whoa, those guitars are pretty out of tune. A lot of stuff is not quite in time. Some of the vocals are there. Peter Criss's drums were great. I think Gene's bass was good for the most part, but a lot of the guitars... Well, okay. Imagine you're in Kiss. You're wearing 6-inch bloody heels. There's bombs going off. There's rockets coming out of Ace Frehley's guitar. It's noisy. It's crazy. People, they're jumping around. No wonder the shit's out of tune, out of time, whatever. That's kind of thing that happened. But so we fixed a few things,
Okay, so then you've got Humble Pie, Rockin' the Fillmore. You've got, of course, Frampton Comes Alive.
Never heard of it.
So what about those? I mean, I know that my band did a live album, and all we did was once we got the sounds up, and it was only the trio. All I worked was the fader with the audience response on it. At the end of the song, we pumped it up, but the rest of it was an actual true live album.
Right.
We didn't have to change anything. Did you ever work on a live album where you didn't have to really, go in and doctor it up?
I think Frampton's album, there was some overdubs on there, but not much. I mean, the band was so good. God, they were brilliant. They were so tight. I would say the John Mayall live at the Fillmore East, that was very, very fine. Nothing was touched. It was all live. There's a few out there that I think were pretty much untouched.
But I guess you have to be prepared to make, inevitably to make changes because of what you're saying. The guys are bopping around on stage. They could be out of wind when they're singing. They bang into another guy and their guitar's going. I guess those things are sort of inevitable that they're going to happen.
I mean, Led Zeppelin, Song Remains the Same. That's over 2 nights we recorded. And I know recently Jimmy went in and did some more tweaking to it, when he did the reissue, which was a few years ago. And the performance itself was brilliant. Even without the repairs, it was just amazing.
Yeah.
They've been critical of it. They say maybe we weren't perfectly at the peak of our performance because it was at the end of the tour. I mean, Robert's voice, Percy's Obsons, was a bit off,
I mentioned off the top of the show that the 3 things that we were going to talk about, and one of them was the time, and I don't know if you do want to tell us this story, but the first time I ever got invited to your house with AJ, your wife AJ had us over for dinner.
Never again.
Something horrible happened that involves a certain rock star that we've been talking about. Would you like to elucidate?
Oh, it was just a minor little accident with a bottle and a lovely old piece of glass that was given to me by a dear friend named Mr. Frampton. But it's all right, you're forgiven.
What happened, folks, was they were in the kitchen, and I said, I'll light the candles on the table. First time in their house. Table looked lovely. I see these beautiful champagne flutes, and you could tell that they were antique. They were gorgeous, well-crafted, and expensive. And I opened the bottle of Prosecco, and all they could hear in the kitchen was tinkle, crash, and all I could hear was this low moan from the kitchen. And I, of course, said, Mrs. Claypool. I tried to blame it on my girlfriend, and of course they all knew that I'd done it. And then afterwards, they were so nice about it. Finally, I was apologizing, and AJ finally says, go ahead, tell them where they came from. And they came from Peter Frampton. They were a gift after you recorded Frampton Comes Alive, right?
Well, it wasn't after I recorded Peter Frampton Comes Alive, but it was a gift from him, yeah. But, that's rock and roll, dude. It's, I think you could chalk that up to sort of throwing a TV out the window from the Continental Hotel, right?
Yeah, but in those days, I meant to do that.
Oh, okay. You're forgiven. Don't worry.
Thank you. I just thought I'd bring it up because I said I wouldn't.
Sorry. Yes.
It's easier to say who you haven't worked with as opposed to who you have. But is there anybody that's still alive that you would really like to, sink your production teeth into?
Wow. I hadn't really even thought about that. Well, let me go back a step. Had Prince still been alive, I would have given anything to work with Prince because I think he embodied so many elements of what Jimmy had put out.
Yeah, for sure.
And taken it to another level. But in today's market, oh my goodness, Ed Sheeran, I can think. Which genre? There's so many artists I would love to work with. I just threw out a name. Foo Fighters, name them. There's a million bands I would love to have worked with. Yeah. Well, no, maybe not a million, but at least 500,000.
Yeah, so you still see, like, I got a question from our friend Frank Cosentino.
Hey, Frankie, baby, what's
Yeah,
happening?
he's gonna like that. Musically, where do we go from here?
Downhill, possibly?
Time will tell.
No, no, actually, I'm very, very happy about where we're at. COVID notwithstanding. And in fact, COVID has been, um, it's been an awful thing, but in some circumstances, it's made us think about how do we record now? And after COVID hit, in the beginning of 2020, I'd just gotten back from California. It was like, I think it was late January. No, it was early February. I came back, and I knew it was coming. And AJ said, "Get your ass back here." I just done NAMM show, and then I was in the studio at Capitol with the Hendrix family, and that was the last time I was in a studio, was then. And it took me a month or so to try to figure out, whoa, the whole world has changed. Everything's shut down. How am I going to work? And it made me look at all the options. And the thing that came to mind was embrace the digital world, you schmuck, because that's the way it's going. And I hooked up with Jason, my engineer friend, and now my partner. And we figured out how to negotiate recording with COVID, using Zoom, which we're on, using Audio Movers, which I think is absolutely genius. By the way, the company just got sold to Abbey Road. Congratulations, guys. But it has enabled me to work with artists all over the world. I now can control Pro Tools sessions right from my laptop. So can Jason. We have our analog gear down at his studio, integrated with my stuff. I can go live to Capitol direct, and they're sending me a signal. I'm listening to it in real time. I have my speakers. I need a laptop and 2 speakers. It's incredible.
Right.
And it's very flexible. Now, is it the same as being in the studio face to face with the musicians? No, nothing will ever take the place of that. I wish that would come back, and I think it will. Maybe not quite the way we would have had it before, but the world has changed. Our whole aspect of working, remotely has just altered the whole landscape.
Okay, I've got just a few more questions. You've been very nice with giving us your time, Eddie. I happen to know that you're writing your memoirs because I've been lucky enough to sit with you when you were kind enough to pull them out and give us a bit of a read. How's that coming along?
You be careful how you use that word, pull them out.
Well, your wife was there, so you were covered.
Oh, yeah, I had to behave myself. Yeah, right.
Yeah, how's that coming along? Your memoirs, sir.
That was great.
Yeah, no, not your wife, sir. How are your memoirs coming along?
That was brilliant. Unintentional, but lovely. Writing a book is like pulling teeth. As you know, you've written 3 and you're way ahead of me. I'm about halfway. There's just so much stuff. I mean, I've got them all in files. There's about 30 artists, each has a file, and I'm trying to do it sequentially because I think it makes sense for me just to keep everything. But they all look, for instance, 1967, an insane year. When I look at all the artists that we were recording, Stones, Hendrix, Traffic, there must have been 30 different bands. That's not even including the orchestral stuff, the jazz stuff, the movies. I mean, it was insanely packed. And so when I talk about Olympic, it's all of those artists, and then I have to pull them, separate them out. And then I think about, wait a minute, what happened before then? All of the artists I worked with before that, and then all the ones afterwards. So you divide it up into eras. Now I think it's a better thing to do in eras where it's, the vintage stuff from like 67 to 72, which includes Zeppelin and all of that. And then you go to the hair bands, and then you go to the heavy metal bands, and then you go to the shredders and now it's R&B and pop and hip hop and sampling. And
Well, you know how I write. Mine is basically dishing the dirt and putting the other stuff around it. And I know the way you think. And I think I did ask you one night, you were with Led Zeppelin, the biggest hounds on 8 legs. You were with Jimi Hendrix, who was no slouch with the women. You got Kiss, hello. Are you going to dish the dirt, or are you going to keep it to yourself?
Dish the dirt. What is there to dish? So I was in the limousine when stuff was going on. I don't know.
People want that stuff. This guy who will buy all of your books wants that stuff said. Okay, I got another question for you.
I'm working on it. I just have to make sure I get myself in a loose mood. So I'm going to trust you to give me a bottle of wine so I could do it.
I'll be down tomorrow. You've also got a documentary in the works. Tell me about From the Other Side of the Glass.
So the book, it starts off as a book called From the Other Side of Glass. It's my story of how I started and all of that. And we got a really nice deal with Penske Media, who's helping us with it. That's Rolling Stone and Variety folks. We have a very good producer, Spencer Proffer, dear friend of mine, lives in LA. We had to put the whole thing on hold, of course, because of the COVID thing. And we're just gearing up. Now, once I finish the book, we're off to the races. And then we're going to hopefully start maybe if I can get it done before the end of the year, maybe 2022, we'll go for it.
Well, we can hardly wait. I got one last question, and thanks so much, Eddie, for doing this. I know we're friends, but this is above and beyond the call of duty, so thanks a lot. You've lived in Africa, you've lived in London, you've lived in New York, you've lived in LA, and Lord knows, and now you're in Canada. How are you feeling about? Is this where you're going to stick around? You got.
AJ and I love it here. We've been here since 2015. I was here in 2015, and she came in 2016. We absolutely adore Canada, and we particularly like Prince Edward County, which is where we are. It's peaceful. It's great. The folks are terrific here. It gets a bit bleeding cold, if you know what I mean. Take potatoes in the mold, cold. It's good. I mean, it's you introduced us to this beautiful area, and we definitely want to settle here, and we're working on our permanent residence, and that's going to happen soon.
So you've answered you're going to stay in Canada,
and we're going to become Canadian citizens, of course.
And can you imagine the look of surprise and joy on your face someday when I knock on your door and you open up the door and I'm looking for a cup of sugar?
I'm leaving town then.
So we've covered a lot of ground about your history. So what are you up to these days?
Well, these days, Mr. Godovitz, sir, I'm busier than a one-arm paper hanger. And we talked earlier about the whole digital world and how we've managed to work with artists all over the world. I have been doing back-to-back mixing, master classes, which are really going tremendously well. Did the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp, 3 artists over 3 days. 2 songs each. It was very lengthy, very involved in terms of receiving all their material and then preparing it so that it sounds good, and then going live on 3 separate occasions. Mixed with the masters, wonderful guys. I mean, I go there. I used to go to France every year to do it, but now we're going to be doing live from here to Paris, which is going to be great. Waves, the Waves plugins. I've done live stuff with them. Gibson, famous Gibson guitar company. I've done 4 shows with them on 4 separate occasions. One about Hendrix, one about Woodstock, one about Led Zeppelin, and one about you, Greg. No, but that's coming later. This world has just opened up to so many possibilities. The fact that we can communicate this way, as we said before, not the best, but when you do a masterclass and you have 25, 30 kids out there, I've done Berkeley, the Berkeley School of Music in Boston with my friend John Stark, the architect. It's a wonderful world. I love to give the young kids who are coming up today, I want to give them something that I've learned. They can learn something that I've learned 50 years ago that they can apply to their way of working. And it's amazing when these kids get on and they ask a question like, how did you record this and why this? And I go into it very deeply. I go into the analysis of why is that microphone in that position? And why is this mic here? And why did you choose that mic? And which EQ? And where do you put the reverb? Why do you do this? And we just did one yesterday, day before yesterday, with SAE in Mexico. It's a very big school. And there were 40 kids auditioning in the background. And the questions were unbelievable. I mean, these kids are so sharp. And I love to be able to present to them, okay, this is the mix. Here's the bass drum, here's the snare. Why are we doing it this way? And for me, it's a joy. And that's part of what I do. One last thing that is not related to that, but it's somewhat, I'm working with Massey Hall in a brand new studio. I'm the consultant to the new studio, and it's going to be absolutely stunning.
Yes, you must take your new assistant down to have a look.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, that gentleman there with the white hair and the lovely blonde.
Yes, that guy. I also, by the way, you forgot one very important one. Paul McCartney himself contacted you about going over to the Liverpool Institute of the Performing Arts to do a lecture, right?
Yes, I did. Thank you for reminding me. That's great.
That's a darn good one.
Yeah, it was nice. AJ and I went over to LIPA, the Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts, an amazing school. I mean, just those students were incredible. They have theater, music, art, recording, all of that, all in this one school. And it's it's his deal, I got a lovely letter from him, and hey, you don't turn him down, he's the guy.
I was hoping he'd phone actually during our interview, but he didn't this time. So
yes, it's very naughty of him.
And the last thing I want to throw in here is that you and I have been talking about when we return to some semblance of normalcy, going out and doing a two-man tour, short tour.
And please inform the public, we will be naked. So please show up.
Yes. We'll make sure we have 3D glasses so you can see things.
Oh, God, they're not there anymore.
Thank you once again. Have you got anything else you want to tie this thing up with? Anything else on your mind you want to say? Seriously?
Seriously, my best to you. You are a great friend and a great human being. Just stop it. Just stop it right now.
Thanks, Edward. See you later, mate.
Bye.